communication devices or put them on the silent mode. I'd like to call this meeting to order. At this time, I'd like to introduce members of the Finance Committee. To my far right, we have Councilmember Iligan, Councilmember Kern, Councilmember Kanuha, Councilmember Eoff, Councilmember Yoshimoto, Councilmember Ford. To my left, we have Councilmember Onishi and Councilmember Willie. And I am your Finance Chair, Councilmember Poindexter. So at this time, we're going to be taking statements from the public on agenda items. I'd like to check on Kona. Do we have any testifiers in Kona?
Good morning, Madam Chair. We have no testifiers in Kona today. Thank you.
Thank you. In Waimea, do we have any testifiers in Waimea?
Good morning, Madam Chair. We have no testifiers. Thank you.
Thank you. In Kohala, do we have any testifiers in Kohala?
Good morning, Chair Poindexter. We do not have any testifiers for your committee.
Thank you. In Pahoa, do we have any testifiers in Pahoa?
Good morning, Madam Chair. There are no testifiers in Pahoa.
Thank you. In Ka'u, do we have any testifiers in Ka'u?
Good morning. We have no testifiers in Ocean View. Thank you.
Thank you very much. In Hilo, we have one testifier. I'd like to ask him to come up to the table. Mr. Dwight Vicente. If you could state your name for the record and then proceed.
Good morning. My name is Dwight Vicente. I'm representing Hawaiian Kingdom. Communication 879, Resolution 436-14, Bill 256. They all deal with lands that either is designated Crown or government lands. This kingdom has been in a state of war since 1887, with the Bennett Constitution forced upon King Kalakaua at gunpoint by foreign nationals. And with that came the Reciprocity Treaty. This illegally stationed the U.S. Navy here, which started the illegal state of war, which violates the U.S. Constitution because the Reciprocity Treaty is based on a Northwest Ordinance of 1787 and has no authority under the U.S. Constitution. Most people don't realize there is no 5F lands here, or public trust lands. That's based on the, here again, Monroe Doctrine or the Northwest Ordinance, land speculation. Hawaiian Kingdom dealt with land through contract. That's why you have the quiet title. It was for a set number of years. So it's always a government and an individual, never two individuals, because it's dealing with contract. So the taxation you guys trying to impose is illegal, and it's under protest. With that, I'll end with the Reservation of Queens protest of January 17, 1893 against U.S. Minister Stevens. It is yet to make its way to the U.S. Supreme Court. Article 3, Section 2, Clause 2, original but limited jurisdiction. The U.S. courts have no jurisdiction over this kingdom. The other one is the Bennett Constitution and Reciprocity Treaty. It violates the U.S. Constitution and therefore violates the sovereignty of this kingdom. That is yet to be heard in the U.S. District Court in Washington, D.C. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Moving to communications. Mr. Clerk, will you please read in Communication 3.36?
Communication 3.36, Report of Change Orders authorized April 1 through 15, 2014. From Finance Director Nancy Crawford, dated April 25, 2014, transmitting the above report pursuant to Hawaii County Code Section 2-12.3.
May I have a motion to file Communication 3.36?
Second.
It's been moved by Councilmember Kern, seconded by Councilmember Onishi. Is there any discussion? Seeing or hearing none, voice vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, Communication 3.36 is filed. Mr. Clerk, will you please read in Communication 7.30?
Communication 7.30, Report of Fund Transfers authorized April 16 through 30th, 2014 from Controller K. Oshiro, dated May 2nd, 2014.
May I have a motion to file Communication 7.30?
So moved. Second.
It's been moved by Councilmember Kern, seconded by Councilmember Onishi. Is there any discussion? Seeing or hearing none, all those in favor of filing Communication 7.30 say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, Communication 7.30 is filed. Mr. Clerk, will you please read in Communication 879?
Communication 879, Real Property Assessment certification report for tax year 2014-2015 from Finance Director Nancy E. Crawford dated April 25th, 2014, transmitting the above report pursuant to Chapter 19, Section 19-90D of the Hawaii County Code. The total value of net taxable real property is $25,198,050,487.
May I have a motion to file Communication 879?
Second.
It's been moved by Councilmember Kern and seconded by Councilmember Onishi. Is there any discussion? Councilmember Willie?
Yes, just for the public's information, I wanted to say that number, the 25 billion, is $1,655,000 higher than it was the previous year, and this represents a 7.04% increase in the valuation over the previous year. So I think, again, this is the area of concern of how we keep property taxes down, and that it's not just the what is the rate that is being paid, but it's also a question of what is the valuation, and that we were not successful in how to, anyway, reduce real property taxes last year, and it's something that I think we have to keep on the horizon, and how we look for new revenue streams that are not imposed upon the population. So I just, for clarification, and so you understand what that number in the abstract really means. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Seeing or hearing none. All those in favor of filing Communication 879, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay. So Communication 879 is filed. Now we move into the order of resolutions. Mr. Clerk, please read in Resolution 436-14.
Resolution 436-14 authorizes the payment of funds of a latter fiscal year and of more than one fiscal year for a multi-year lease of real property. Authorizes the mayor to enter into a First Amendment of lease for a 2-year extension for Unit A-2, Phase 1 of the Hilo Ironworks Building, TMK 2-2-001:030, at a cost not to exceed $3,273.83 per month, to be used by the Mass Transit Agency. Reference Communication 894, introduced by Ms. Poindexter.
May I have a motion to approve Resolution 436-14?
So moved. Second.
It's been moved by Councilmember Kern, seconded by Councilmember Onishi. Is there any discussion? Councilmember Willie?
Yeah, just quickly, this time period is to allow Mass Transit to locate a permanent space, and I would hope that we don't indefinitely continue on paying this $3,000 plus a month, and figure out how we can incorporate Mass Transit into the properties that the county owns. Were I to be so lucky to be here 3 years from now, I would say I would not vote in favor of this again, and would just hope that it would be resolved by then. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I don't know, Tiffany, do you have anything that you would like to say? Don't want to put you on the spot, but if you'd like to comment on this, just to allow you the opportunity.
Good morning, council members. Tiffany Kai, Mass Transit Administrator. The reason for the proposal was to extend our lease, and it's not going to be permanent, and it's just going to be for the duration while we construct our base yard facility. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Ford.
Thank you. Tiffany, excuse me, Ms. Kai, have you already got a parcel of land on which to build?
Yes, we do. Actually, we're getting approval from the state DLNR. We're in that process of having them approve the parcel, I would say near the landfill.
Okay, that's fine. Okay. Anything. The other thing I'd like to say is thank you for helping the KAU students get to work.
Oh, you're very welcome.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Seeing or hearing none. All those in favor of approving Resolution 436-14, say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Okay. Resolution 436-14 moves forward to council with a positive recommendation. Mr. Clerk, we'll move into bills for ordinances. Please read in Bill 256.
Bill 256 amends Chapter 19, Article 7, Tax Map Valuations of the Hawaii County Code 1983-2005 edition as amended relating to valuations, considerations in fixing. Modifies Section 19-53 of the Hawaii County Code to include the income approach as a consideration in the valuation of taxable real property. Reference Communication 893, introduced by Ms. Poindexter.
I have a motion to approve Bill 256.
So moved.
Motion.
Okay, it's been moved by Councilmember Kern, seconded by Councilmember Onishi. Councilmember Willie, the discussion?
Yes, and I'd like to bring Director Crawford and forward. That's okay. Okay, and let me just say, this is coming from the Real Property Tax Stakeholders Task Force, and this was sort of an administrative tool that was important to the department, and we wanted to expedite getting a tool that other counties and municipalities have and use. So I would like, if Nancy, you, Director Crawford, if you would explain what this is about, so the council members and the public understand why we want to add this one word and a...
Yeah, I'm going to just ask if we can take a short recess. I just got a word that Kona just lost connection. So I'm going to just take a 3-minute probably recess.
Basically, we're adding one word, income, and a comma to section 19.53, our tax code, valuation, considerations in fixing. And Director Crawford is here to explain to us and the public why we want this additional tool in our backpack.
Sorry. I'm Nancy Crawford, Director of Finance, and with me is Stan Sitko, our Real Property Tax Administrator. I'll just make some opening general remarks, and then Stan could perhaps add more specifics if you're interested. This is basically as stated here. It's a long document for one word and a comma, but as you can see, there are two basic methods that they currently use for assessing real property tax, and income approach is not one of them. It hasn't been included. When the income approach is relevant to commercial properties, and often when we have appeals, those appellants are using the commercial approach to support their position, generally that, based on income approach, that their assessments should be lower. And that's the first we're able to get any information and then start working from there. The income approach involves getting additional data that we don't currently get also from commercial businesses. But in its simplest form, this is really just to provide another another tool that broadens their ability to effectively and fairly assess the values of the commercial properties. Stan, you want to put a little more details on that?
I'd also like to point out that it is one of the recommendations from the IAAO audit. As a general certified appraiser, I was kind of stunned when I first came here to Hawaii to find out that you couldn't use the income approach when you're dealing with certain types of commercial properties. Now, this is not a cure-all or end-all. There are some properties that just it wouldn't be applicable for, but all the professional organizations from the IAAO to the Appraisal Institute recognize this as one of the basic 3 approaches to value. I would say we do have a lot of work to do to catch up. However, our system is already capable of handling income data if we can start collecting it and putting it in. As you can see, even in 2001, I was kind of trying to push this idea. So there is no cost there. There is the cost of collecting the data. What we have to do is set up economic rents across the island and then apply them accordingly. This will be of great assistance to us in appeal cases because we're no longer buying what some outside appraiser is feeding us, but we already have our own data to counter them and say, no, you've got bad management there, or you've got really good management there. This is what an economic rent would be here, and that would assist us greatly in upholding our appraisals, especially of large commercial enterprises.
So,
I yield to any questions.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Kern?
Thank you, Madam Chair. First, for the public's knowledge, this is strictly for commercial property. This would affect commercial property primarily, correct?
It is not applicable really towards residential or other
this
types.
Would be apartment buildings, office buildings, resorts, retail shops, etc.
Fundamentally, anything that would be where an investor would be looking for an income stream.
Correct. Okay, so I like this. I have a couple questions on it. I mean, I have some background in real estate, and usually commercial property is usually based, the income, the value of it is based off of the income approach. People are usually buying and selling based off of the income of the building. So one of the questions that I have, is it going to actually, or is there going to be the ability to take the straight income approach? Because this could be really valuable in the sense of if somebody has a building and it only has, say, 50% occupancy, they have less income, they're making less money, they're having a harder time. If the appraisal was done or the valuation was based off the income approach, their value would be at X. Somebody who has another property that has a complete occupancy, they're going to be making more income. The income approach would then take their valuation up higher. So basically, if you're making more money, you're paying more. If you're making less money, you're paying a little bit less. Is this going to actually be a straight income approach, or is it going to be kind of a culmination, or is it going to be a pick and choose? And who does choose? Is it the property owner that gets to choose and say, I want to take this income approach, it's going to be the best thing for me now, or is it the department?
Well, first off, it's always up to the appraiser to decide which approach is most applicable. To backtrack a little bit, as where you were saying, I mentioned that we have to set up economic rents. Part of that process is we figure out what the potential gross income would be, then apply a vacancy rate that's normal for the area. You're going to have people who, shall we say, through bad management, have only 50% of their units filled, as opposed to their neighbor who's got 100% filled. So we set up models basically in the system, and this is what we expect. For example, for a hotel, we expect so much a night. We have to allow for 60% for expenses, and then so on and so forth until we get a net operating income, capitalize it. That value would be applied, and if it's applied, it would be applied across the board uniformly for an entire class of commercial property.
Okay, well, so it's not. It won't actually be real time. It'll be basically setting a metric to use that approach.
That is correct. It's setting up a model. Now, we do have the ability to hold what we call actuals, and that's what we use to determine our models.
Okay. And so then would the real property tax appraiser go with whatever value is higher?
With whatever value is most appropriate and defensible, not necessarily the highest one.
I guess that could be pretty subjective, couldn't it?
Unfortunately, all of appraisal is subjective. It's an opinion. It's a defensible opinion, and that's why I use the word defensible. It may cost X dollars to build something, but you can only generate income supporting, let's say, 2/3 of that. What's the value? What's the market value? What would someone buy this for? It's the market value. Okay, so that would be the lower of the two.
Right. So it's another metric to get to the closer point of a market value versus just the cost of it.
Exactly.
Okay. I will yield for now. Thank you.
Councilmember Ford?
Thank you. I have a lot of questions. First of all, the backup documentation specifically says commercial properties. But when you look at the bill, all it says is income. And therefore, I have to ask some questions. First of all, this should say, if it's only going to be commercial, it should say commercial income. Okay, so the question I have is, if you own a piece of property and your farm, and it's your home, you're living there, it's your only asset, and you're farming, and you make money from your farm, because that's the whole purpose, are you going to be taxing the farm income on somebody's homeowner exempt property?
That would not be an appropriate use of the approach, and that's pretty much covered in USPAP.
Use what?
USPAP, Uniform Standards and Principles of Appraisal Practice, which regulates us on a federal level.
All right.
That would not be considered an appropriate use of the income approach.
I understand, but this doesn't say that, and that concerns me. So, Nancy, you wanted to say something on this?
Well, I wanted to make a comment, just sort of relating to that, yes, which is that though it is not called out specifically in this language, the overriding, as Stan said, something has to be defensible, and it has to fit federal guidelines and other appraisal guidelines that I feel cover that, what you might see as a gap there, because I feel that that's it's covered in other methods. This was the simple way to identify that we have 3 approaches to use. If it's not appropriate to homeowners, then
okay. But as a as a homeowner with a farm, you know, as far as I'm concerned, it's generating income, and it goes into our taxes, and we pay taxes on that. But because it's a homeowner owned parcel, you're saying that the farm will not fit this definition.
That is correct.
Okay, I still would like to see commercial in here. All right, now the next thing is, let's go to, right now you've got property value. That's what you tax on, right?
That is correct.
Okay, and you keep talking about 3 different assessment things. Property value is one, income stream is another, and what's the third?
Okay, there are 3 approaches. Okay, one of it, property value, there are 3 approaches. Let me kind of back up a little bit. 3 approaches to property value or market value, okay? The one is the cost, in which case we value the land and then figure out how much it costs to build it, which is what we predominantly use. The other one is the sales data, comparable properties. What did one sell for, and what does another one sell for, with appropriate adjustments for location. And this is usually the most utilized one for residential, condominium, or other properties, just like the one you talked about. The third approach is the one we're trying to add to our quiver here, and that's the income approach, which is basically what an investor would pay for this particular property.
Thank you for clarifying that. All right, now, we've got an email from somebody who's asking some questions, some very good questions, and specifically, this is her question.
She has
You do have a copy of this. Okay, down in the second paragraph, how many acres of a 90-acre parcel is assessed at homeowner rate if there are 100 campers, each paying $150 a month for a family membership, in quotes, residing in tents distributed evenly across 90 acres? I'm horrified to think that this might be going on, but what's the answer to that? Is that commercial? Is it homeowner occupied and therefore it's not counted as revenue? Because that looks like a commercial thing to me.
I would agree wholeheartedly. That is basically an illegal use of the property under homeowners, probably zoning violations. If they were in the homeowners class, they would lose it.
Okay, they lose it for how long? Backwards and forwards?
We go back 2 years.
So they would...
Current plus 2.
So you would designate this for the taxes as commercial, back bill them 2 years, and they would go forward for forever, right?
Actually, yeah, well, if they ceased and desist this activity,
different
then
issue.
Different issue. But yes, it would go back 2 years, plus we would change the current, plus we would go forward until they did cease doing that. Now, we don't have the power to make them stop doing a basic illegal activity.
I understand.
The property itself would be taken at full market value, as opposed to what it's getting at now with the lower rate.
Okay. So, and this would be a zoning violation, and obviously, and so therefore planning would have to step in and issue notices of violation and go through that process. Okay, so for the person who sent this in, the answer is you need to file a violation with the planning department, and this could be back billed. Now, if that's the case, this is for tax purposes only. It does not automatically change the zoning to commercial, so there's no automatic zoning change. It's just, this is, what you're telling us is just for tax purposes. They're going to get hit just as if they're a resort.
They would be hit at whatever their underlying zoning is.
County zoning or state zoning?
County is first, as per ordinance.
Okay, so if their underlying zoning was, this is obviously ag land, I'm going to make that assumption, 90 acres of ag land, what are we looking at on something like that?
Well, we would be going up from $6.15 per thousand in value to $9.25, I believe. Nine
something. That's good enough. That's close enough. And so they're per thousand, and then they would, the valuation would be based on, at this moment in time, it would be based on their ag zoning.
That is correct.
Okay. But you would bring that ag zoning up to the commercial, correct? Because they're operating a commercial.
I can't do that.
That's we could get a lot of money here.
Basically, what it is, the zoning that's underlying, and we do value for highest and best use. So we originally assumed that this thing is being used properly as what's allowed under the ag zoning.
Okay. All right. I'm not going to address the comments in I'm saying her, I don't know who it is, in the first paragraph, because her complaint is that developers are using heavy trucks hauling material, and that's a completely different issue. So I'm not even going to deal with that one. Nor will I deal with the other accusations in there. I don't see that we need to do any analysis on this. You've explained what you would do in a case like this, so I'm going to yield at this point. But I really think that the income needs to be specified in the bill as commercial income, and I'm hoping that we'll take care of that. Thank you.
Councilmember Iligan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, I do want to make a point. To first make that point, I do want to mention this statement. The income, so before there was actually two different approaches, market data and cost approaches. and the income would be to value using appropriate systematic methods suitable for mass valuation of properties for taxation purposes. Now, what's different with this and the organic incentive bill that I brought up? Are we deferring this to the task force to understand it more? Is this a little bit different? This came from the task force. Okay, I was not aware of that. So this came from the task force, and I'm glad, because I was wondering, are we gonna refer this to the task force? Because for me, I would not. I really wanted to, I'd vote on this. I just want to go through the process that I was put through also to make it fair. And I'm glad that the task force produced this and we're doing something. Thank you.
Councilmember Onishi?
Yeah, okay. But you got to also remember, this was part of the, when they did the audit on the IAAO, the recommendation was to put this in our code. Yeah, and so when we had the discussion with the department and with the task force, this was agreed upon. Okay, let's move forward, because this is like just putting in a word in the the code, and that was it. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. No one else in the first round? Okay, second round. Councilmember Willie?
Yeah, so I appreciate Councilmember Gunn's question and pointing this out. And just so to be clear, there are issues that are sort of on an administrative level that the department's been working on things even before we set up any task force to improvement, and how that they can work more effectively. And those are just going on. So we've got things that are intra-departmental, things that are intergovernment departments, and those things that are sort of different policies. This is on the I consider administrative level, and helping our department do a better job and be more efficient. And so we're sort of trying to move those along. We are doing other areas, say, as you know, ag, and we're sort of looking at those.
And let's say, if you wanted to rent office space, you'd be asking for A-class office space or B-class or C-class. You would have, the last time I set up a income approach was in Albuquerque, New Mexico. I had 5 different classifications. You had the Marriotts in one grouping, and the various types of service, like you said, 1 through 5 star, each had their own little model.
All right. And I want to address or question something that Mr. Kern said, not what he said, because I don't think there was any problem with that, but my understanding of what your answer was. And that was whether you're going to use straight income, straight cost to bill, straight sales, or some hybrid system. I think that's what you were talking about. And I'm not sure I understood your answer. When you use these 3 approaches, are they not hybrids of each other? Are you going to use a cost to bill basis, then add the income to it, or how does that work? I didn't understand.
Okay, in the appraisal process, you actually develop all 3 if you can, if it's appropriate. In some cases, like let's say your residential home, okay, it's not appropriate to use the income approach, so you would not develop it. But you would develop the cost and the sales comparison. You would probably put the most weight on the sales comparison, and you have something what's called a reconciliation. That's when you select one of the 3 or the most probable approach.
Okay. I just want to say this, because I know there's a lot of people that I know. When you use the comps, it's, the problem that we have in our area is I have a coffee shack next door to me, and then I've got over $1 million, a $1.34 million home in my subdivision. So the minute you get something expensive going in, your comps automatically get whacked and your assessment goes up. To me, there's a problem, because there's quite a difference between the average home and a coffee shack, or the average home and a $1+ million house that, would be the nearest comp. And last time my house had a comp done on it, the nearest comp was 4 miles away, which was ridiculous from my perspective. How do you deal with that fairly?
Regrettably, the market sometimes does not allow you to have all sorts of cookie-cutter comparables. So what you would do, first off, you would not compare the coffee shack to the $1.5 million. That causes you a problem. You then have to look into another similar neighborhood, and it may be 4 miles away because we're a rural county.
Yeah.
Okay, we're not downtown Honolulu. And what we're looking for is a neighborhood that somebody looking and in that particular market for that particular house would consider that particular location an equivalent purchase. And when we set up the models, we have to wait for how much we penalize or adjust the comparability between a property for distance or going out of its neighborhood. So all these factors have to be set up and worked in, but yes, we try to adjust for these differences. And that's how we would do it.
Okay, thank you, I yield.
Councilmember Elegant.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have some questions regarding the bill, not the process this time. But first of all, I just want to say thank you to the Task Force Committee for doing the hard work and getting this forward. So I just want to say thanks for kind of getting this through. Now, I was reading through it, and on G, it says limitation on homeowner assessment. And is this added regarding the dates for effective date of dedication, or is that just?
This is existing. This is all.
Okay, it's just because when we add something in, it's underlined, and.
Can I just clarify that? That's how it's written in the standard. So it's an existing.
Okay.
That's the way the form is existing in the.
Sounds good. I just wanted to verify that because it looks like it was like we're dealing with commercial property and then you're adding something for homeowners. So I just want to make sure that's not. Other than that, let's keep up the positive change.
Thank you. Councilmember Ford?
Thank you. I don't think I got my answer on hybrid. Of these three methods, are you going to be using a hybrid between them or a straight? That's what Mr. Kern had asked, and I didn't understand.
At this point, we would make the decision as to which one is the most applicable of the three and then use the most applicable.
Okay, not using a hybrid between them. Thank you. The last comment I just want to make is for Mr. Iligan. I don't want Mr. Iligan to feel that he was picked on by having his bill sent to the task force. I think I've written 3 tax bills, and unanimously we have sent all 3 of them over to the tax group, the task force. So it's nobody's being picked on. I would love to have all my bills passed immediately too, but we set this up for a reason, and we're going to follow the process. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Onishi?
Oh, you can go. Ms. Willie had any question? She had. Were you going to say anything?
Willie,
yeah, if you want me to go first.
Okay, Councilmember Willie.
I just want to ask Nancy, in terms of Ms. Ford's comment about should we add in sort of, and for commercial properties, the income approach. I guess when I read this, I look at it as these are the 3 vehicles, and they're done as for value using appropriate, basically using the appropriate methodology. I do appreciate her question and see that. And is that, how do you respond? Do you think that that would be helpful, or are we just adding more complexity where it's not really necessary? So just if you could give a little feedback on that.
My comment would be that I am comfortable with the current reading and the fact that you are selecting the appropriate method. I leave that to the wisdom of the council to make a determination. But from the administrative point of view, we feel comfortable that that's not going to be misused because it isn't further specified, since it does say to use the appropriate method, most appropriate method.
Okay, and then just second, quickly, I just want to clarify that this is a task force and not an ad hoc committee, and therefore we don't have the same, like, sent out to pasture and come back with everything at the same time deal. And I'm referring to Ms. Ford's statement to me, okay, but we don't want to hear anything from you until you've got everything done. We're moving as quickly as we can, but bundling things that are related. But we're not restricted, as I understand from what Corporation Counsel Ishida said, to only coming back one time with all of our proposals. So I just wanted to make that clarification in response to Ms. Ford's concern that she didn't expect to hear from us until we're done. That's not going to be the case. Thanks.
Thank you. Councilmember Onishi? Oh, you yield? Okay. Is there Councilmember Kern?
Yeah, real briefly. Hearing what Ms. Ford's saying about wanting to specify that in commercial, I really don't, not to be offensive or anything, Ms. Ford, I don't think that would come up, because if it's a homeowner property, it's homeowner class, there's no income, so that approach wouldn't really be applicable. Is that right? This doesn't seem to make sense for residential, unless there was a cluster of of rental homes or something like that.
If you want me to answer that, yes, you could have an income on a homeowner's property. You can rent the room, which is allowed to be in the class and to get the benefit. It's just that it would not be appropriate because the value, it's the wrong value, to be blunt. The income would be minuscule. To answer your farm question, most of the time you have to discount you have to use a very low cap rate to get the land value for ag uses, and the income would not be appropriate there also. So.
Councilmember Ford?
Several years ago, your department brought a bill forward that wanted to use income and you wanted the state income taxes sent to your department. And we had a problem with that because we didn't feel that residential homeowners should have to send a copy of their income tax statement into you. Could you address that particular bill? I know it's not on the agenda, but the reason I want to have commercial on here was that we had this issue come up before. I want homeowners to understand they are not going to be impacted. We're not writing this for you guys because you know what you're doing. We're writing this for people, normal people, the average person who wants to come in here and look at this. And I remember that because when I pointed it out that it didn't say commercial income, it said just income generically, Mr. Ikeda and I both went ignition and liftoff, and the bill got defeated. I don't want to see this defeated. I want to see it state exactly what you're doing. Adding the word commercial isn't going to cause you guys a bit of problems, but it may help the average person who has to read this. That's the reason I'm trying to get this in here. It's not hurting anything to be more clear, but it might, anyway, so comments on that, please.
My only comment is that I apologize, but we don't recall that particular bill or its intent. But in any case, at this point, we are not seeking from council or from the tax department for someone to provide us with anyone's income tax reports, and I'm not sure that they would, other than the degree to which something is public information. But even that we are not seeking. So I think that's a moot point.
I appreciate you saying that. If we put the word commercial in here, which means nothing additional, no work, nothing, just a clarification for the public, are you going to have a problem with that?
I do.
I don't have a problem with that. My comment is that I don't think it's necessary.
Okay.
Beyond that, I would leave that to the council.
All right, thank you.
Councilmember Willie?
Let me just say there are a number, various categories, such as there's commercial and there's resorts and different names, and then we have homeowners as opposed to residential. And we're sort of looking at how those things are defined. And I think, at least for right now, I would urge us to pass this as is. And then when we move forward and one thing we're trying to do is add to clarification, look at all the categories, Ms. Ford, and we will be bringing this forward, I believe, sooner than later. Do we need some further clarifications based on how we possibly revise those category headings? But I think right now, in my mind, okay, does this cover resorts, and is resorts under the same definition of commercial? And so I would like to urge that we pass this as is, keep in mind Ms. Ford's concern and communication to the public, but not get into refining it further at this time. So that's my 2 cents.
Thank you. And seeing no other further discussion, I have a question to ask about for clarification. Bed and breakfasts fall under residential. Is that correct?
That is correct, but they do not get the homeowners class.
Okay. So, seeing that, so leaving out the commercial, I'm just going to say that I trust your judgment in that, because we don't want to start restricting ourselves in this on just being identifying just commercial, and if some other thing comes up, we're restricted on the category of commercial. So
I would agree, only in the sense that, we use terms differently, right? Like right now, today, we're talking about this is applicable to commercial property in its broad sense.
Right.
But there are, within our tax categories, we have commercial, we have resort, we have residential, which might be apartments, and we have an apartment also, so.
Yeah, so it'd be safer to be the general here and then use that. Okay, go ahead.
If I may, yes, there is a problem in how we're defining words, because fundamentally I would consider warehouses that are industrial, quote-unquote, zoned, but being rented out, they're commercial. Resorts, they're commercial. So yes, that would be a danger that we would have there by
just saying commercial. Okay, so that was my closing. So all those in favor of approving bill, I think I better do may I do a roll call on this one? I'm not sure if we have one that, so Mr. Clerk, can you do a roll call on this, please?
Ms. Eoff?
Aye.
Ms. Ford?
Kanalua, aye.
Mr. Iligan?
Aye.
Mr. Kanuha?
Aye.
Mr. Kern?
Aye.
Mr. Onishi?
Aye.
Ms. Willie?
Aye.
Mr. Yoshimono?
Aye.
Chair Poindexter?
Aye.
Chair Poindexter, you have 9 ayes.
Okay, so Bill 256 moves forward to council with a positive recommendation.
Move to adjourn.
Okay, it's been moved by Councilmember Kern and seconded by Councilmember Onishi to adjourn. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, okay, meeting is adjourned.